Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Goodwin, the founder of Career Club, and welcome to another episode of LinkedIn Live with Career Club. If you're not familiar with Career Club, please check us out at career.club, where we're helping folks find careers that matter to them using proven sales methods and tools. This is a live event, so we are certainly welcome to comments and questions as you might have them. But realizing that we had over 400 folks register for this, we know it's going to be a pretty packed agenda today with our guests, who we'll get to here in just a minute. I also want to let you know that you can also download the audio of this as a podcast on your favorite podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify, as well as see a replay of this episode on YouTube, on Career Club's YouTube channel, or right here on LinkedIn. I also want to say thank you to my colleague, Heather Zinzer, who is the magic behind pulling these events off. So Heather, as always, thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to get to today's guest. I am just really pleased and privileged to welcome David Taylor, the recently retired CEO of Procter Gamble and still currently the executive chairman of the board of P&G, to the show. We'll get to David here in just a second, but David's reputation, both as an executive, but I think at least as importantly, just as a quality person, is second to none. I'm a huge fan of the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, and he talks about level 5 leadership. And I think David personifies that as much as any leader I've ever been around. So with that, David, I'd like to welcome you to today's show. Did we lose him? Heather, I'm not sure if we might have lost David here for a second.
We did lose David for a second, but he will be right back.
Okay, cool. Well, that is the beauty of doing a live event. So there we go. I see David's about right there. He is. Hey, David, you missed my illustrious introduction.
I can't hear.
No? Heather, maybe we can pause the event here for just a second and see if we can get the sound going.
We'll be able to do that in just a moment, David.
Unfortunately, I can't hear anything. If you can hear me, I cannot hear the question. So I'm going to log off and log back on.
Okay.
Unless you tell me differently. We're sorry, everybody. We've got a technical issue here.
Yeah, no problem. We'll figure that out. Like I said, this is the beauty of live television. So Heather, would you like for David to log off for just a minute?
Yes, he can log off for just a moment, and I can send him instructions
on how to and come back.
Do the audio.
Very good.
Yep. All right, Dave.
Yep. So while we're waiting for David to log back in, there's a couple of main topics that we'll be discussing with David today, drawing on his 3 decades plus experience as an executive at Procter. The first is going to be around leadership principles, and we're going to be diving into kind of what guides David's leadership style. And there's several things that he and I had discussed in a pre-call that I know that the audience is going to really appreciate. And then the second part of the conversation, which again, I think our audience is really going to enjoy, is around talent. You know, we're in a very hot talent market these days, and people are rightly, wanting to work at companies that matter, who have a purpose. They also want to be appreciated for their work. They're looking for flexible work arrangements. And so David's going to share with us a little bit about how P&G has evolved in that regard. He's going to be talking also about how the kinds of things that he is looking for and what catches his attention when he's looking for talent and spotting future leaders at Procter. And then hopefully we'll also get into a little bit about some of David's board work and how he's spending his time in what's beginning to be his post P&G career. So with that, Heather, do we have any update on how we might be doing?
We do not have an update on that. And I'm messaging him now to hopefully help with that.
Okay, cool. Maybe while we're also waiting for David, I'm happy to, maybe we could just do a little bit of a preview of some upcoming episodes that we've got, if you'd like to register for those. One is Next week, we've got Plinio Ayala, who is the president and founder of Perscolis. And Perscolis is a nonprofit who focuses on driving diversity with technology jobs. And a core part of what they do is also with broadening the talent pool to beyond just folks with a four-year college degree, and driving the talent pool much deeper than it has, in creating new career paths for people that traditionally have not had the opportunity for well-paying, kind of future-proof tech jobs. So I see David in the video here. Heather, is he on yet? Can you hear us yet, David?
Yes, now I'm sorry. Sorry, we really a little bit of problem, but we're fine now.
Awesome. No, not a problem at all. So you missed my flowery introduction of you, but needless to say, very pleased and privileged to have you join us today.
Pleasure to be here as well. And again, sorry everybody for the slight technical interruption.
No, not a problem. So let's kind of quickly move into the little bit of the icebreaker section, if you don't mind, David. So just to help people get to know you a little bit. Where were you born and raised?
Born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, all the way through junior high school, until I went to Duke University for college.
Awesome. And I guess Charlotte's changed a little bit since you grew up there, yeah?
Incredible, the growth that's been there. I went back recently, and it has grown up tremendously. Areas that I used to live just a few miles were undeveloped, now are extremely developed. It's turned into a thriving southern city.
Yeah, and I know that you're still quite involved with Duke, and I think the Fuqua School of Business as well, yeah?
Yes, I went to Duke. All three of my wife and our sons have gone to Duke, as well as two of their spouses, or their wives. So yes, we're deeply tied to Duke. And as I tell many people, I paid 16 years of Duke tuition, so we're quite
very good. And then, what was your degree in?
Electrical engineering.
I thought you were an engineer. And then you mentioned your family. Just a little bit about your family, Marcia, kids.
Yes, yeah. I've been married for 42 years to Marcia. We have 3 adult children, 34, 30, and 28. 2 of them are married, and the third one's getting married on Cape Cod next month.
Oh, congratulations. That's exciting.
It is.
And then I know that we could probably spend the whole episode just talking about your career arc, but do you mind just maybe kind of an encapsulated version of kind of your career at Procter?
Yes, it's a bit unusual in many ways. One of the great things about P&G that I've really enjoyed is that where you start doesn't dictate where you end up. Again, I was an electrical engineer coming out of Duke. I started in North Carolina in product supplier manufacturing. The next 11 years, I was in 4 different manufacturing plants in manufacturing, North Carolina, and went up to Michigan, to Georgia, to Pennsylvania, ran a large plant in the late 80s, and then had the opportunity in a conversation I had with one of the senior managers about what I'd really like to do over time. And I said, I'd really love the commercial side. I'd love to learn more about it. I really enjoy the technical side, but I'm fascinated by consumers and customers and the business that we're in. And so he said, for that, you need to start over in the brand building side. So I went from a plant manager of 1,280 people in Pennsylvania to essentially a new hire in the marketing organization as a brand, at that time called assistant brand manager, and then moved up assistant brand manager, marketing director, and then overseas as a general manager of our Greater China hair care business for 3.5 years, and then to Europe for a couple of years, and another business, back to the U.S., and then from vice president to president to what we called sector leader to CEO to chairman and CEO. So it's been all over, 8 locations, 2 functions, many businesses. It's one of the, to me, special things about P&G, the opportunity to go wherever your passions and capability enable.
No, that's phenomenal. And yeah, I think that we, in the talent section of our conversation, I would love to kind of pick up on how that actually helped inform how you have spotted talent and people coming to you looking for the same advice that you looked for, those years ago. And then where do we find you, David, when you're not, I mean, you've deep Procter & Gamble, but what are you doing when you're not doing P&G stuff?
I'd say that the first place we would be is doing something with our family, given that we've lived all over the world. One of the interesting dynamics of having assignments overseas is your family does come together. And so we try to have some family vacations, but not just Thanksgiving and Christmas, but try to get together sometime in the summer. In fact, in a couple of weeks, We'll be going to Lake Norman outside Charlotte and
Nice.
take a few days on a lake. And our 3 sons, their spouses, my wife and I will meet for a few days. And if not that, I enjoy playing golf. Not well, but I enjoy playing.
No, that part I can empathize with quite a bit. I don't know if much of the rest of your story I empathize with. They're not being so great at golf. That part I understand. So while we were getting kind of the technical things squared away, I was sharing with folks that we're going to talk kind of in 2 main sections. One is around leadership and sort of your philosophy and things around leadership. And the second piece is going to be on talent. So if we could kick off with the leadership part, David. One, I guess, is how would you describe your leadership style? And then maybe the double click on that is what some of the guiding principles are that have informed your leadership style.
Very good. There's a quote that I remember from many, many years ago that I've tried to work toward. Don't believe I'm there yet. But the quotes, and again, it's from someone else. I didn't make it up. But the words are trying to be one who is courageous, inspiring, and collaborative. One who helps everyone around them take risk, fails occasionally, but ultimately delivers outstanding results. And each of those words means something to me, which is what you want to do is enable other people. You want to allow people to take risk. I start from in P&G, and certainly my experience has been that I'm surrounded by very competent, thoughtful, principled people. And if you start from there, then it's about how do you unleash the human capacity that's in your organization. It's not about evaluating whether who's good or bad. Everybody that works at P&G has capability. And there's a book written many years ago called Good to Great, and talked about getting the right people on the bus. I have found the biggest opportunity, while that's important, is getting the people on the bus right, i.e., how do you create the set of conditions where they can bring their whole selves to work and then contribute at a very high level, building on the capability of others, where then teams accomplished more than any individual thought they could accomplish. And that's been, frankly, what I've worked on for all 42 years, is how do you work with people to unleash the capacity of those individuals and play whatever role that I need to play. And it's been very situational in the various assignments and locations and businesses that I've been on.
Well, so while you were messing with Chrome or whatever we were doing to get online, I had mentioned Good to Great. And another one of the principles in Good to Great are level 5 leaders.
Yes.
And I was saying that I really believe that you embody that as much as any leader I've been around. Do you mind just kind of revisiting very quickly what you said, where Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus, and you say getting the people right? And just, do you mind unpacking that just a little bit more for me?
Yes. Yeah. One of the things at times people do is they approach leadership and talent development as one of judging and evaluating versus developing and enabling. And to me, they're different mindsets. One is looking to find issues at times. The other is looking to unleash the capacity in the individual. And I believe in most occasions in my professional career and in the nonprofit work I've done, it's about how do we create the set of conditions where people feel encouraged to speak out. Because the latent capacity that exists in our organizations is often much more than's coming to bear at any given time. I believe strongly that none of us are smarter than all of us. So if you get people around you that you value, and you can listen to them and listen for understanding, not to figure out, or win the argument, but listen for understanding, what you'll find is new information, a fact and experience that they had that moves you in a different place. And one of the other things that's powerful is instead of trying to be right, do the right thing. And many of us try to be right. We try to win the argument. And to me, the best leaders I've worked with try to enable the people that they work with to be successful. And when they do that, good things happen. And what you find then is people become very committed to you to help you as well. And that leadership approach to me can be very empowering to others. And again, less judging, much more about empowering, helping, enabling.
So I guess part of, that's such an interesting point that you're making about, figuring out what is right, not being right, and doing it as a team and being collaborative. This may be an unfair and maybe a very incorrect stereotype. In a large public company like Procter, 140,000 associates or something like that?
About 100,000.
Okay. How do you kind of dial out the politics and the jockeying and all that kind of stuff so that those beliefs, those principles really do get played out in the real world?
Yeah. I think what you pay attention to gets brought to life. And if you're into the politics, the gossip, talking about people evaluating good, bad, and then I think it creates a culture that talks a lot about those kind of things. On the other hand, if you're talking about outcomes, how do we collectively work to deliver outcomes that are exciting for us as employees and are beneficial to the many stakeholders that depend on Procter & Gamble, consumers, customers, the communities in which we live and work, our suppliers. There's a broad universe around P&G. And to the extent we can see the opportunity and the excitement to serve consumers, if you think about it, P&G has the opportunity every year to touch and improve the lives of 5 billion people on this planet. 5 billion people will buy a product from P&G this year, roughly. We have the opportunity to touch and improve their lives in small but meaningful ways. That's exciting. And if that's not exciting to you, you probably shouldn't be at P&G. And then if you take that as there's a purpose that matters, you can touch the world because of personal care products or other products that will make their day a little bit better. Then how do we do it better than anybody in the world? And that allows us to be successful. And then success certainly has benefits to the employee and to the broader stakeholder community in which we work with.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we're going to keep going down this good to great path, but that's kind of the hedgehog concept.
Yep.
What can we be the best in the world at? What do we care about? What's important to us and what drives our economic model?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
sounds like.
And while it's straightforward, it's hard to do at scale across 10 categories, roughly 70 brands, over 100 countries. But again, it's about creating the set of conditions where the people in each of the situations feel supported and able to do what's right for the business. Yeah. We have a rigorous hiring procedure that allows only very strong people to come into the company. So if you start with that, your mindset needs to be about an enabling performance culture, but a very supportive performance culture.
I'll tell you, as a former vendor to Procter and dealing with the kinds of folks that you're talking about, you really need to be on your game. But I also found that your Procter people were equal parts really smart, but good people to deal with. And you would have to have a rigorous, and maybe we'll get this in the talent section, but you would have to have a rigorous process to do that. You talked about, David, about China, Europe, you like traveling with the family. One of the things that we had talked about in our pre-call was learning by traveling.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could maybe kind of build on that thought for a minute.
To me, it builds on this whole idea of integrative thinking, which is the benefit to me of travel and not executive tourism, but traveling to learn. So when I travel as the leader of P&G, when I show up in a market, in many times what we try to do is start to go in homes, learn from a consumer. And I don't go in as a P&G employee. I go in as a researcher so that I'm here to learn about the person, the consumer. It may be a woman in Morocco. They have the home field advantage. There's this person from America that's come to learn about my daily life. And I'll ask them, what product, tell me what about your family. And then they'll talk about, I take care of, often it's a mother, I take care of the kids. What's your routine in the morning? Here's what we do. We get them up, we feed them, and then we wash dishes. Can I see how you do that? I'm curious. And they'll take me to the kitchen. I'll open the cabinet. Well, I pull out each product and say, where'd you get this? Why'd you buy this? What was it about this that was interesting to you? And we'll go through product by product. Then we'll go wherever they wash clothes and maybe in the bathroom and ask them questions about the shampoo. And what happens is you start to understand how they're thinking about the product. From there, we go in store and we try to understand again how our products are presented to consumers. And then we go to the office. And we talked about, again, the consumer, the customer at the core. And then now how do we bring it to life with the people that are there? And they're the experts. I'm not. And the opportunity to learn through their eyes on what they view the challenges are. And then to the extent I can add value by at least making some suggestions or connections, we have a productive trip. But the net effect of doing that many times, 15 to 20 countries a year would be typical for me. Wow. Pre-COVID. What you end up getting is a collective understanding of both the organization, the way the organization sees the consumer, the customer, and the marketplace, but also many of the challenges that we face. And then we can think on a broader corporate level, what are the tools we can provide and support we can provide to the markets? Plus, I get a chance to meet and get to know many of our leaders around the world. And certainly while there's an evaluation component always, it's much more about how do we help them grow and develop. And again, since we're largely a promote within company, it's very important to understand the talent and to invest in the talent, give them the experiences and the training so they can become stronger and stronger leaders of their teams.
A little bit of a random question, but as you think about some of the either in-home or even speaking with associates from different markets, is there something that kind of stands out to you as like, wow, I'm not sure I ever would have came up with that one on my own. That is such a different perspective than what I grew up with in North Carolina or in Cincinnati that sort of sticks with you all these years?
There's many of them, but I'll give one specific one that actually hatched a campaign, an advertising campaign. And this was coming out of a trip from Japan. We had some junior researchers, I think both R&D and marketing, going in homes. And we have a product called Febreze. You're familiar with it here. And part of it is a fabric refresher that you can spray on fabrics and it helps eliminate odors and leave a light, fresh scent. And the market was pretty flat. And while we had a large share, the market was pretty flat, not growing. And these folks went in homes and they did just what they should do. They watched the consumer and said, could you take us through? They're not from P&G now. They're there to learn about the ladies' cleaning habits. Can you show us how you clean your house? And this lady she had a little thing she carried around with all of her cleaning implements. And she walked around the house and say she was cleaning the living room or whatever the room they live in. And then the couch she couldn't clean. She took out the fabric refresher and sprayed it. And then she went into another room in the bedroom and cleaned something. And she couldn't clean the curtains and maybe her husband smoked. So she sprayed those with fabric refresher. And the net of it was, and I don't know if the consumer said it or people concluded it, they came away with, it was like she wished she could wash everything she couldn't. And she used fabric refresher on whatever she couldn't wash. It hatched a campaign called I Wish I Could Wash. We made 30 commercials over several years. And what it did is it showed all the different uses for fabric refresher, anything you can't put through a washing machine. I remember one of the commercials where we had somebody, you'd like to wash your couch and you put it on the car and run through a car wash. But instead of that, you can spray it with Febreze. The category grew 10 to 15%. Our share went up, consumption increased. And it was an example where we could show a lot of consumers something this lady had figured out. It was a wonderful tool to keep her house fresh and to allow her to clean things, or at least to eliminate the odors and things she couldn't clean. And those kind of insights come in insights. It is mind opening that allows you to grow your business. Not an accepted consumer belief, but a new way of looking at it. We'd shown somebody with a smoky jacket, you spray it and it eliminates it, but that's a limited use. She said anything she couldn't wash, she sprayed with that. Fabulous.
Well, that's the beauty of ethnography. And somebody used the word ethnography in one of the comments here. And it's right. It's seeing real people in their real environment and doing what they really do. And as you said, they're to listen and to understand, not as a P&G person, but just to observe and to learn. And you probably never would have come up with that in a conference room.
No, we would have had a technical thing and a side-by-side, and here's how we're better than the competition. But the challenge in this one was not to be better than the competition, even though we were. The challenge was to grow the category, make it where people saw the various uses of it, and that raises all boats. Customers don't care if we grow share from another competitor. Right. Customers care if we grow the category because that increases their sales. And the other key point, it's a principle, is when you go in home or in store, you start with a place of high respect for the consumer. You're not going to critique what he or she does. You're there to learn. They're the experts. Yes. And when you come in with that mindset that you can learn from individuals, then you get the benefit of their counsel, their experiences, and their knowledge, as opposed to trying to persuade them. I believe when we're at our best, we're not selling products. We're meeting people where they are and solving or providing solutions to needs they have, as opposed to, you ought to buy our product. Let me understand your life and your needs and see if we can come with something that provides a solution to something that makes your life better.
Which is pretty much what makes Procter the best marketer in the world, because you guys are the best at figuring that stuff out. on leadership, and I'm reading a little bit from a note that I took from our call, but you were talking about difficult decisions you can deal with constructively, but it's relative to the quality of the relationship you're dealing with. That's a pretty profound idea, because we all have our work life, and not everybody sees things the exact same way. That could be amplified when there's cultural differences. We live in a polarized society, it feels like these days. Could you maybe expound on that concept a little bit for folks?
Yes. And it's a deep-seated belief, and certainly one early in my career I had the benefit of learning from a number of people. But if you think about it, many people see the small talk or join-ups as wasted time or soft things. I would say building a relationship is the foundation for being able to get many very important things done. And a model that I saw very early was a continuum that said, if you graph or show the quality of a relationship, the depth of a relationship, it almost dictates the ability to deal with tough issues. So if you have a very strong, deep relationship, you can handle much more complex issues constructively than when you have a shallow relationship. So as you build relationships with your peers, your colleagues, your teams, when an issue comes up, people approach you from a place of trust, and you're able to get at the issue. When you've got a very superficial relationship, both sides are guarded. Both sides don't know what to think about the other person. And therefore, the ability to solve that issue constructively to the satisfaction of both is very difficult. So I believe, and certainly try to invest time in getting to know people on their terms. That's why I like going in homes. Don't bring people and have them be an analyst. Go understand their needs. When possible, even have your one-to-one meeting with somebody at their office, not the boss's office. Yeah. Find ways to create comfort so that you can get to know the individual, and that'll allow you to talk openly and work often difficult issues constructively.
Yeah, I remember working with someone, and you're kind of the light bulb that went off in my head was they were demonstrating that they cared more about me as a human being first and a work producing unit second. Mm-hmm. And so when it was time to, provide constructive criticism, a suggestion on something I could do better, it was much more well received because I knew that the person cared about me first as a person, and it wasn't about ego or whatever. It's like, this person genuinely cares about me.
Yes.
If he or she's saying that, then I know they have my best interest at heart, which makes me want to accept what they're offering. Yes. Versus something else. So, obviously that concept, that principle applies to so many facets of life, whether it's teenage kids, spouses, work colleagues, whatever it is, that is a universal concept.
Yes. The old saying, which is people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Amen.
Captures it.
Well, one of the things that you had shared with me, David, and this week we were talking about people that would be peers of yours, like a Doug McMillan or a James Quincy. And you were talking about humility and adaptability. And what did you mean by that? And why those folks?
Well, certainly there's many, and those are two, but there's many people that have had the benefit of getting to know. And it's one of the reasons why I'm heading to the Business Council tomorrow, which is a group of 100 CEOs of large firms, because you get the chance to meet very interesting individuals and learn from them. And in my view, the ones that I find most effective are the ones that are less about themselves, more about contributing to something that's bigger than them. And certainly, having talked to Doug McMillan many times, he cares about Walmart. He understands all the way back to Sam Walton's original vision for the store to help other people be able to live a better life. And the same with Brian Cornell and many of the customers that I think are very customer leaders that are very fine leaders. I've certainly benefited from working for a number of people at P&G that I think understood that, the institution Procter Gamble has been around over 180 years. We touch many people, certainly billions of consumers, but also tens of thousands, now over 100,000 employees depend on us for their livelihood. And so you ought to approach it with a deep sense of responsibility. And those that are more humble are open to learn. And when you're open to learn, you become better at whatever it is. Those that tend to have more of an ego or a little more arrogant tend to believe they have the answer. And as I said in the beginning, none of us are smarter than all of us. Mm-hmm. And And there's another saying that I really like, which is we could get anything done if we didn't care who gets the credit. Yeah. Those with a high ego care who gets the credit. And therefore, there's a lot of jockeying. Instead of trying to pull out all the information, people want to be right versus do the right thing.
Yes.
And that's why I choose to associate myself as much as I can with other leaders that see something bigger than themselves, because then you can learn from them, you can work with them, as opposed to someone that wants to be right and is more self-centered.
How do you deflect the pressure of like, well, you know, we're in a conference room at the GO and David Taylor's in the room, and that people expect you to be the wizard and you're the genius amongst everybody else and you've got the right answer and I should just shut up and let David tell me what the right answer is?
There's many tools that people can use. One that I've used earlier in my career frequently and still do at times is when there's a tough topic, especially say it's a marketing topic and I've got a leadership team with all the functions. Instead of just talking to the marketing individual, I'd ask everybody in the room, we're all consumers. What is your view? And I've had people say, well, David, I'm the technical manager. I don't really know a lot about this. I said, but you're a leader, you're smart, and you heard the same information I heard. What's your view? And everybody, I want to hear their view. Just take a minute and you go all the way around the room. And I've had many people come back and say, wow, so you really valued me enough, even though I wasn't the expert, to hear. And I said, often that's where we get the mind-opening thought from someone that isn't looking through a traditional expert, domain expertise lens. If you take sometimes observations from others that are less deep in the topic, along with the domain expert, then you can come up with a really clever idea. And again, it's this whole idea of integrative thinking. If you surround yourself with people that you value and that you trust, then the more you can understand when someone has a different point of view, why they do, walk down their ladder of inference and find out what set of facts or beliefs or experiences caused you to conclude that. Mm-hmm. In that process, almost always you're going to learn something. And if you do that with people that have had a wide set of experiences, which is why diversity is so important, you broaden the set of experiences that you're making available to you to make a decision. And what happens, no matter what decision is made at the end, almost always everybody in the room coalesces around it because they got their say. It wasn't the expert talked. I know that's not the right answer, but I'm not going to say anything because he's only going to listen to the inner circle. It creates a much more open, inclusive approach, and it underscores diversity. It underscores skills like integrative thinking.
Well, yeah, one of my takeaways from this is, you know, that you are walking the talk. It's one thing to have these posters and plastered all over every wall in the GO. It's something totally different to be in a meeting with the CEO. He says, no, I really do want to know what you think. Do you mind just take? It's like, wow, to your point, I'm just going to repeat what you just said. Wow, you really did want to know what I thought, didn't you? And you do value my opinion. And that is such an energizing thing for the associate that just like makes them want to wake up and come back to work tomorrow and be part of the solution.
And the reality is, and there's no false modesty here, the reality is many of the people in the room are smarter than I am. It's very real. I'm surrounded by very smart people. And almost always, if independent from intellect, there are people that know more about that topic than I do. There's no way as the CEO of a company the size of P&G, I'm going to have the domain expertise or the specific knowledge on most topics that people look to me to be involved in. So the role I really play is to lead a discussion. And then ultimately, in some cases, I have to make the decision. In many cases, I will delegate the decision to someone that's truly in a much better place to make it and then back them so that they feel they have the support of their organization. But this whole notion that the leader has the divine inspiration and knowledge to be able to make the decisions is just not true. The command and control model, to me, largely in corporate America, we've learned there's a better model. It's a much more diverse, inclusive team being unleashed, with the leader being a facilitator to get to the right answer, and when needed, to make the decision. And there are many times when you need to stop the swirl and make the decision. But it ought to start with making sure you avail yourself of the information and you don't have predisposed views of who is right. You really try to listen, learn, then think, then decide. And that approach to me gets to a much better place. And I truly do believe that the people around me that I work with, whether I'm in the market or here, many of the people have much better information than I do.
Well, I think the results speak for themselves. How long were you CEO? 6 years?
It's been 6 years as CEO, and certainly we've moved as a company. And this is a testament to the quality of the team and the company, because it is about unleashing it. We moved from the bottom third of our peer group on a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year basis to the top third of our peer group on a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year basis now. And that happens not because of one person or 5 people or 10 people at the top. It happens collectively having a strategy that's working. And then instead of deploying the strategy, enrolling, listening, refining, and then implementing the strategy with a group of people, collective teams that have the capability to bring it to life. And I couldn't be more proud of the people around the world. I mean, through COVID, they've gone through incredibly difficult circumstances and have made sure they take care of each other, take care of their consumers, and take care of the communities.
There you go.
The capability of the company has come through tremendously.
Well, so all that's a big testament, as you said, to the talent that you guys have been able to recruit and retain at Procter. So let's maybe use that as a pivot point to talk about talent for a little bit. You know, you talked to me about the difference between performance and potential. Do you mind kind of sharing your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think people conflate the two a lot, and they're both important, but they're different. Performance, at least in my mind, evaluates and results, evaluates specifically what you did in a defined period of time, your performance the last quarter, 6 months, or a year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean if you perform poorly, that doesn't mean you don't have tremendous capability and potential. Procter & Gamble performed relatively poorly. If I go back to 2015, our previous 5 years were the bottom third of our peer group. We were performing poorly in the market relative to the best competitors. Was our potential poor? Absolutely not. Our potential was outstanding. The challenge was how to convert, how to unleash that potential to deliver the performance. I believe, and certainly pay systems ought to evaluate performance. You ought to I believe, and certainly our philosophy, is you pay for the performance someone delivers. And then you invest in developing and unleashing the potential in somebody so they can perform even better going forward. The tools to evaluate performance are very clear. You can get results, you can get feedback on the impact on other people in a defined period of time. The potential looks at other things. It looks at things like the intellectual capability, how quickly people can take a group of maybe a large set of data and come to well-reasoned conclusions, how well they work with people, the EQ, people above, peers, and below, and the capacity to do work. All those capacity, emotional potential, and intellectual capacity all speak to the potentials that they have. How well they used it that year is the performance. Pay for performance, develop the potential so they can perform better. 2 separate evaluation systems. We try to separate the two in our company, because just because someone has a great year doesn't mean they ought to be promoted. Just because they've a bad year doesn't mean they don't have tremendous potential. We have tremendous contributors that are good at what they're doing that may not be good at the next level. You have to evaluate the potential capabilities, intellectual capability, the emotional capability, and the capacity to do what's required in the future.
So, and maybe that's the lead in to the next question, which is when you're evaluating talent, what catches your eye? I mean, obviously, particularly as, you know, either a BU leader or, you know, obviously as a CEO, people want to, quote, impress, you know, they'd like to catch your eye, but what catches your eye? Like, that person has a ton of potential. How do we invest in them?
The thing that I say when I travel and interact with people that gets me excited, and there's many, many instances of this, is when someone is able to deliver impressive results and do it with a group of people that are strongly behind them, because it tells me they were able to establish both a strategy or a business plan, bring it to life, and have the people with them to accomplish that. And again, I often, as I go to markets, I don't just talk to the senior leader. I try to talk to as many people as I can. We go in stores with more junior people, walk me through the aisles, tell me about each category, and then go in homes, go in stores, and then come in the office. We'll often do innovation reviews. We'll go to the tech centers here in Cincinnati. We'll go to the Mason office or other offices and see people at various levels. But what you want to watch is not just what they say, is how they interact with people, how other people interact with them. And it allows you to get a picture, at least a snapshot, to go along with other data you may have coming through other means. But I get excited when I see people that enjoy what they're doing. You can see them actively engaging and inspiring their team. And they talk about what can be. So they have the vision to say, we did a great job this year. Look what we delivered. But here's what we see is possible. And you see the team getting excited about that, because that's somebody that's unleashing the capacity, has a very high standard of performance, but does it in a way that brings their people with them.
So I want to be mindful of the time, but I don't want to lose an important topic. And you touched on this a few minutes ago, which is the importance of diversity and why you believe diversity is important.
I think it's critically important. It's one of the key reasons P&G is delivering today. Interestingly, our board is 50-50 men, women. Our board is a third multicultural. Our senior management of our top our businesses, we have 5 sector CEOs. Right now, it's 3 women, 2 men. The CEO is a male, the CFO is a male, but 3 of the sector CEOs are women. We've worked very hard to create a diverse leadership team. About 60% of our senior vice presidents and above are from out of the country. About 60% of our sales are outside the U.S. So we've got a globally diverse, ethnically, gender, in many different dimensions. There's a model that I saw many years ago that I think is very valid, and that is homogenous teams start out fast and get up to a pretty good level, and they're relatively flat. Diverse teams tend to start off a little slower because it's a little messy. People have different ideas, different approaches. But then if you can harness that, significantly outperform the homogenous team. And so it's my belief, if you take a belief in diversity, the integrative thinking, and the unleashing the capacity of people, you go through that join-up process, you invest in the relationships, a very clear vision, a very clear strategy, and then you enable these diverse thoughts to come out, to be able to see around corners better than the homogenous team would, and they tend to outperform. So again, I think you have a wider range of outcomes with a very diverse team, and then if you've got a strong leader and people that want to perform well, the potential is much higher. And certainly that's what I've seen over the course of my career. I've worked, as I said, in many businesses. I've worked in Asia, lived and worked in Asia, lived and worked in Europe. And everywhere I've been, the principle of listening, working with teams, and unleashing them works very, very well. It's all about, to me, starting from a position of the person that you're looking at has value, the ability to contribute, and trying to understand how to work together to accomplish something that both of you would find exciting. Yeah. And if you approach it that way, great things happen. But the idea of I'm going to surround myself with people that look like me, to me, you're cutting yourself off from so much opportunity to learn and grow. Don't see difference as a threat. See difference as an opportunity to learn, grow, and contribute and perform at a higher level. And if you do that, it opens up so many opportunities. And to me, that's been my experience. Difference is an opportunity. When I went to China, there was very few people that looked like me when I moved into Guangzhou. I lived in Hong Kong, but I commuted each week. But they had tremendous knowledge of the culture, the language, the customers. I didn't. I knew something about working with people. I didn't know much about the Chinese culture, the language, the products. Together, we were able to do wonderful things. The same happened in Europe. It's because of their capability, not mine, their capability. My role was to kind of bring us together and understand the business side well enough to have a very clear strategy, where we're going to play, how we're going to win, what, if we executed well, would give us a basis for competitive advantage in the marketplace. Then how do you get this talented group of people together that probably have all the skills and abilities, but we've got to bring it together in a way that unleashes it.
Yeah, I guess that's part of, obviously, diversity, inclusion, equity, those are super on trend words to say now. And you can see companies, that are being very deliberate in trying to diversify their talent pool. What's the key though to, well, that's great that we hired all these people, but how do we actually get the integration, get the benefits, that harnessing that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's the second word that I think people have the biggest challenges. Anyone can go hire and have people that look differently in gender, race, whatever.
That's right.
I mentioned the challenge for outcomes to me is often an inclusion, which is truly believing, not doing it because you're told or you've got to hit some quota, because you truly believe. And if you really believe it, then you try to surround yourself with people that are different, and you create the set of conditions where they're able to bring their whole self to work. You see that any differences, again, is an opportunity to learn. And if somebody sees that you're really curious and interested and care about them, then you get more and more of them. And then both of you learn and grow. And I've learned so much from so many talented leaders at P&G that have confronted me and others, and that would, to me, bring new information. And one of the things that I can remember vividly is someone said, when you get in discussion and you start to say, well, that's not what I meant, and people are going back and forth, the best way I've seen to disarm that is to say, I'm not telling you what you intended. I'm just telling you how it affected me, how it made me feel, and why my behavior is the way it is. So you can't deny me my feelings. Every individual is entitled to their feelings. And a good leader cares enough to try to understand how to unleash in a positive way. If the way they're doing something, even if they don't intend it to be harmful, is causing people to feel threatened or shut off or discounted, then it's the leader's issue. It's not the individual's leader. We shouldn't lay diversity on the hands of, if you have a representation that's low in any group, needs to own the problem. The majority party needs to own the party, because they have all kinds of built-in advantages. I don't have any illusion that as a white male coming out of Duke University, that there was an advantage that I had in 1980 when I started as an engineer. And it shouldn't be that way. So part of what I want to work is to make sure we truly level the playing field, while recognizing that people that come in from different schools, capabilities, experiences, bring needed perspective into our company that makes us better. When you serve 5 billion consumers, you don't want a group of people that look like themselves leading the company. You want a group of people that look like the people you're serving, which is a very diverse, both gender, ethnically, culturally, and literally every different dimension. And I think we're getting better and better, but we're a work in progress like every other organization.
That's right. Jeez. Sorry, I touched the button by accident. So again, being mindful of the time, let's kind of maybe bring this home now, David. Somebody said they wish you would write a book. So that's a good one. I don't know. Is that in the offing? Are you thinking about that?
No, there are other people that do that far better than I do. I'm happy to share what I've learned, but I don't pretend to be an expert. What I tend to be is a practitioner. What I am is a practitioner. I've benefited from so many people that are much smarter than I am, that have learned these things. And I've got a wide range of experiences. I've had the gift of being able to live outside my own culture, to learn about others, to be a minority in a culture, and understand how it felt when everybody was talking something that I didn't understand, or talking about experiences that I didn't understand. And to me, it's made me probably more sensitive to both the threat and the opportunity. And I choose to work on the opportunity. Unfortunately, I think the media and others have portrayed differences as a threat. And we've been shown to fear differences as opposed to see that as the opportunity it is. The vast majority of people want to do the right thing and want to be valued and contribute. And so why not start with that as your worldview and then work from there? And to me, that just creates an environment where you get the best of both yourself and others.
Yeah, no, I love it. So if you had to, let's just kind of take it all the way back up to the top to kind of close it out. If you had to summarize, for one of your kids or a new associate or whomever, what are sort of the 1, 2, 3 things that you would just really want to impress on folks that they would take away from our call today?
It's first, believe you can be a change agent, because you can unleash the talent of the people around you. I believe in many cases, the greatest barrier we all face is ourself. It's self-imposed barriers. I can't do that. If we had the time, I will tell one quick story. A great story I learned from a school teacher. One of our children were in, I think it was 6th grade class. The first day of class, the teacher asked them to write down everything they can't to do on a piece of paper. And he said, now when you work on it at night, don't talk to your parents, keep writing all the things you can't do. And, my son came home. What do you do at school? Can't tell you, Dad. And he's writing stuff down. And then he went the next day, and the teacher had a box in the middle of the room. Everybody laid their piece of paper down. Some had multiple sheets. The teacher picked the box up. This is, I think, 5th or 6th grade, and said, "Follow me." Walked out of the classroom, behind the classroom, dug a hole, put the box in it, buried it. And he's told the kids, at this age, there is nothing you can't do. Mm-hmm. There are great pianists. There's great athletes that started at your age from zero and become world-class. Yes. And his whole message, which is powerful for all of us, which is don't put limits on yourself and others. Watch the language you use with others that puts limits on them, that puts people in boxes. Recognize that we have much more. For each of the folks that's listening, your capability to create positive change is probably much greater than most of us think, because we tend to think in limits. The world tells us things we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. I'd love to be able to have the mind of a 5-year-old, because you don't know what you can't do. Therefore, you're willing to try and contribute at a much higher level. And the more we can keep that mindset, the more we can unleash the organization that we lead or the people you work with.
Well, David, this has been phenomenal. I knew it was going to be better than good. And of course, you delivered. So thank you. Again, I've been just keeping a little bit of an eye on the comments, and Heather's been very sweet to put some of them up on the screen as we've been talking. It's very inspirational, David. It's positive. It's people affirming, which is so important. And this last little bit that you talked about, which is don't put limitations on yourself. You talked about taking risks and being okay with taking risks. Learn from when it doesn't work. The language of business is results at the end of the day. That's a fair comment. But we learn by doing. A friend of mine says, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, right? So we and being a practitioner, that's what you do. You learn as you go. But this bias for listening, for understanding other people, have a lot to contribute, and kind of low ego, big ears is probably a really good mindset for people to have. So I just want to thank you so much. This is a masterclass in leadership that you delivered in about 45 minutes. So thank you. And for folks who are listening, this is going to be available again as a podcast. So you can download this, listen to it at your pleasure. But David, I just want to say again, thank you very much. Inspirational, educational, and just terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Enjoy the conversation. And certainly I wish everyone the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Heather.